Good morning, and welcome to All Things Marcellus with me, Attorney Doug Clark of the Clark Law Firm. I am located at 1563 Main Street in Peckville, and I am here every Sunday from 8 to 9 a.m. to give landowners valuable information that you need regarding natural gas development here in Pennsylvania. At the Clark Law Firm, my focus is on landowner and only landowner representation. Represent landowners for gas leases, pipeline agreements, royalty and royalty deduction issues, doing more and more estate planning for my clients and for other individuals who are now clients because they are starting to get royalties, or, hey, look, you don't need to wait. Always want to get good information and get it early so you can make a good decision and the right decision for yourself and your circumstances. I say that often. We want to make sure for everything that you're getting the advice, and with estate plans that you're getting the plan for you, not for your neighbor, not for a group where there's some seminar going on. You need the plan for you. Everybody is in different circumstances. You need what's right for you. Same thing with leases. Same thing with pipeline right-of-way agreements. Doing a lot of unitization issues, more and more of those. Is your property properly unitized? Is your decimal interest correct? Whenever you get the paperwork from the company, we're finding some errors here and there. Most of the times they're correct, but sometimes they are not. And when they're not, that can be a very negative thing for the landowner. Also doing a lot of, as we see more and more development, surface site agreements, well site agreements, all those type of contracts. Bottom line, if you're given an agreement or you're presented with an agreement, whether it's me or somebody else, please get assistance on your behalf. I'm going to stress that, on your behalf. Now, you can always contact me. You can always contact me directly at 570-307-0702. It's 570-307-0702. Now, I was debating if I was going to get into this or not. It struck me here. I'm going to. I say, if you have any agreement, if you're presented with anything, take it to a lawyer who understands and can assist you, and somebody you are comfortable with. This is not a commercial to say, hey, everybody go hire lawyers. But these are serious contracts. And generally speaking, in most cases, the contract or the agreement that you're presented with is clearly insufficient and can be made into a much better contract. And if not, a good lawyer is going to tell you, hey, look, there's not a lot of flexibility here. This is a strong agreement. Go ahead. I would recommend that you can sign this if you're comfortable with everything. Here's the good. Here's the bad. If you're comfortable, go ahead and do it. And you know what? That doesn't take very much time. So as far as the expense goes for an attorney, your expense is going to be much lower there. However, if you take a document to an attorney and they know what they're doing and they say, hey, wait a second here, this is a problem, you're not going to probably want to just go ahead and sign this, and here's the reasons why. Well, again, right there, you can say, you know what, I have the ability to say no or refuse this agreement. I'm not going to continue to incur expenses and waste my time reviewing and dealing with this. I'm just going to go ahead and pass. Or you can say, well, since I can say no to this agreement, and it's not the worst thing in the world, I wouldn't mind. Maybe it's a pipeline in this case. I could live with that. I could deal with that. But what they're offering is nowhere near enough money. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, you're offering me $20,000 here. I would do it if you would pay me $50,000. Maybe it's $100,000. Pick your number. But if you want to, you can put a number back out there and say, if you're willing to pay this, then I'm willing to continue. And then if it does continue, your attorney's going to negotiate, write terms, draft terms. Your attorney can negotiate these numbers as well. You have a plan, you come in, you do this. Well, if you engage in that type of situation and say you started out at 20 and you end up signing, let's say, for $75,000, and now, well, that cost you some more time to do this because you've altered this agreement and you've made it 3 times better in this example, more than 3 times better in this example, and a good attorney is going to get you better terms, terminology, language, which can result in 2 things. One, a lot more compensation in the future, or at worst, if that's possible to say, or they're going to protect your property. They're going to limit what can happen. They're going to limit when they can operate, where they can operate, how's it going to be restored. All of these things, in my experience in dealing with hundreds upon hundreds of landowners, are very important, and landowners are very pleased and happy to have those terms and conditions added to their agreement. And they're also extremely happy and pleased whenever they have the opportunity in the future to either renegotiate something. Maybe it's an additional line, a larger line, a change in location. They have the opportunity to say no or renegotiate and get additional compensation. So all of these things are things that you need to be looking at. So if you are doing that, if there are more negotiations and there is more time spent with the attorney, as a result going to be some increased costs, well, generally speaking, in almost every case, you're going to see the benefit to that. You're going to see the benefit easy, and a lot of times is compensation, which is very easy to see and realize, but then also the benefit of having a much better contract. Even, people often are, and they should be, worried about liability. Are you potentially liable if there are any injuries or if there's damages occur? Somebody's injured, there's on your property. Maybe something is damaged on the property that doesn't belong to you, or maybe some of your property is damaged outside of the area where they were supposed to operate. Something occurred. You want to make sure that you're covered there. You certainly do not want to be liable for any injuries or damages that you didn't cause. Also, while I'm on this, I'm going to be limited here because I'm going to jump to what my ultimate point was. But the other thing is, I'm talking about a pipeline here. I've done shows on the roadways, and I'll do more on this. These roadways, you got to be super careful as a landowner. You can potentially refuse it. And if you don't refuse it and you allow the roadway and you just listen to the company guy preaching his line, and you say, oh, well, this is how we get royalties. Okay, where do I sign? Then all of a sudden you get your $1,000, maybe less, maybe a couple $1,000. And then, lo and behold, a couple years later, you start getting tax bills for this roadway. Or worst case, maybe you're in clean and green and you get a 7-year rollback tax and penalties. Nobody ever told you about that. Here it comes. The landman works for the company. The landman works for the company, not for you, the landowner. Now, hopefully that came across, because I'll be honest, I'm actually very fired up about something that just recently occurred. And I wasn't going to get so much into this, but I'm going to. And I'm going to present it this way. Let's say there's this hypothetical case. I have my client, and this is what these guys do. And again, I'm going to rant a little bit because I am fired up right now. So this is very, very common. This isn't to say every single person operates this way, but this is a common way in which landmen tend to operate. Now, there's some good guys. I have good working relationships with a lot of these guys. Very good relationships. But sometimes I think, they step over the line a little bit. All right. So, hypothetical scenario. I have a client, hypothetically, who's out there, and we have a relationship for a specific project, a representation to work and negotiate a contract for a specific project that's going to occur on the person's property. Well, what happens is, and this is really funny to me, the landmen want to, as I always say, build and foster this relationship with you, the landowner. They want to come out. They want to bring you treats and cookies and bread and whatever from different towns. They want to bring you donuts. They want to bring you these things. They want to and get close to you, so you'll think they're good guys. So when they tell you things, you're going to believe them, because why would a guy who is a good guy lie to me? Well, why would they? Well, why is he bringing you donuts? Why is he bringing you something? Why is he bringing you chicken soup when you're sick? He's just that nice of a guy. Well, if he's that nice of a guy, why is he out there? He has a job to do. Okay, he has a job to do. But they're out there as a history signing people at much lower contract prices than what the company is willing to pay or will pay if you negotiate that contract, if you understand your leverage. Their job, and I respect that. We all need to respect it, but we need to be aware of it. Their job is to get you to sign. And their job is not to get you to sign at the highest compensation that the company would possibly pay for the agreement. Of course, it's not their job. Their job is to get you to sign the most bare bones, basic contract that there is for the lowest possible money. That, ladies and gentlemen, is their job. I am Attorney Doug Clark. You're listening to All Things Marcellus. I'm here every Sunday from 8 to 9 a.m. on these stations. You can also check out the show. Go to pagasleaseattorney.com, pipelineattorney.com. We'll have this show up tomorrow morning, Monday morning at pagasleaseattorney.com. Okay, so I'm once again ranting about landmen. And again, I'm not saying this is everybody, okay? But they're working for the company. They want you to sign an agreement that's beneficial to the company. So when they tell you, well, I'm all about the landowner. Well, if you're all about the landowner, let's talk about your history of being a landman. Man, and how many times have you signed people at contracts when you knew that the company would pay more? Or how many times did you sign people for leases or right-of-way agreements with the most bare-boned addendum when you knew that the company would provide more? Many times with the market enhancement clause, which is a clause which may or may not result in seeing this reduction or deductions in royalties. But my point is, back in the day, if you asked for the market enhancement clause, which is a clause in a lease seeking to decrease or eliminate deductions from your royalty payments for pipeline transportation and gathering costs. So back in the day, 2008, like middle of 2008, 9, 10, 11, in those regions, and even longer, if you asked for that provision, it was virtually automatic with every company. There was a couple different forms to it, but it was virtually automatic. So what do we see? I go back, I do lease reviews, I'm doing unitization issues, I'm doing royalty issues. I go back, I look at the client's lease, I see when it's signed, and I look and I see what addendum terms are there. And it kills me because so many times we see that if there are addendum terms, they're essentially throwaway terms that really mean nothing. But there's some terms, but anyone that has teeth to it, it's not there. So take like a market enhancement clause that would potentially and probably really benefit the landowner. Well, it's not there. Well, why is it not there? Here's why. The landman didn't tell you about it. Why didn't he tell you about it? Here it comes. He works for the company. He's not going to tell you, oh, by the way, if you ask for this term, I will give it to you. The company will give it to you. And it may result over time in tens of thousands and hundreds of thousands or even more in money to you in the long run as the landowner. It may result in that. And I can give it to you. All you got to do is ask. But since you didn't ask, well, I'm not going to put it in there. And if you have 100 acres, that literally can be, tens of thousands and hundreds of thousands of dollars over time. But the same guy is going to sit there and tell you how he's pro landowner. Just like the story I've told before, the guy who, I have a client who's sick in New Jersey, been a client in many other things. The landman talks to him like on a Friday, Thursday or Friday, talks to him. Client says, yeah, I'm really sick, I'm not feeling well. Says, well, we have this extension of your lease. We want to do this extension, a modification of your lease. He says, okay, well, you can send it out. We'll talk about it. I'm not really feeling well, but we'll look it over. Well, he lives in New Jersey. That night, knocking on his door is the landman with cans of soup. Cans of soup. Why? Because he's such a good guy. He cares about this landowner who's not feeling well. The guy has the flu. But he also, with his cans of soup, he also had a folder of documents requesting that they be signed. So that's what we're dealing with. I'm going to talk more on this because I am fired up. I'm going to finish my story with something. The reason why I'm talking about this, the reason why I'm so fired up. I'll be right back after this break. You're listening to All Things Marcellus with me, Attorney Doug Clark, Clark Law Firm. You can always call me 570-307-0702 and check out pagasleaseattorney.com and pipelineattorney.com. Welcome back to All Things Marcellus with me, Attorney Doug Clark of the Clark Law Firm. Again, I represent landowners and only landowners, and hopefully that comes across through the show. Want to remind everybody too. I keep pushing them, but there's such. I'm a very big part of them, but I'm very proud of the websites. pagasleaseattorney.com, pipelineattorney.com. I'm very embarrassed to actually say this because I've been talking so much about the pipeline sites. I have worked extensively, and I'm working extensively over this weekend on the pipeline site. So I promise it's coming. The renovated site is going to be great. Really encourage people to check out the current site at pipelineattorney.com. Dealing with a lot of these FERC, Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, eminent domain pipelines, a lot of activity going on there. So doing a lot with that. And then, of course, also the gathering and transportation. I can't say it enough. I truly can't say it enough. If you are presented with a pipeline agreement, contact an attorney. You can call me, 570-307-0702, and the attorney should tell you, hey, look, you can say no to this. You may not even want to entertain this. Or, look, your gas lease allows such and such, but here's what your options are. And I promise you, a good attorney is going to give you great advice. A bad attorney or attorney doesn't know is going to give you hopefully their best advice, but it may not be the best advice for you because these things can be complicated. There are things like, and I'm just going to stick with this for a second, there are things like these pipeline right-of-way agreements where the landman will say, well, we can do it under the lease. We can do it under the lease. Then your attorney may say, well, they have the rights. They can do these things under the lease. But, little secret here, even though a company can do something under the lease, doesn't mean that they will. Doesn't mean that they will. Think about this. If a company has rights under a lease to put a pipeline on your property, and they want to use that pipeline, we'll say, to transport gas from across your region, well, if your lease terminates, the right to have that pipeline placed on your property may also terminate. So think about that. A company enters into an agreement, or a company proposes agreement, you don't like it, they threaten you to do it under the lease, and you say hypothetically, okay, go ahead and do it. Well, a lot of times you're not going to see that happen because, and this is not advice for any specific situation because we've got to look at your situation, but just because they have the right to do it, if they actually do, because a lot of times that's misrepresented by the landman who works for the company, but if they actually do have the right to put the line there, pay attention, because if your lease terminates, then their right to use that line may terminate, and their true intention, although they have that threat that they can put it in, they may not ever do it, and probably in certain cases they certainly won't do it, because if your lease terminates in 50 years, they want that line there for 100 plus years. So they're not going to do it, or they're going to offer you more money, or they're going to negotiate with you. Don't be bullied. Don't be bullied. Don't be tricked. Don't be taken advantage of. And same thing with your, first off, your lawyer should be there for you. Should be there for you, to help you, work for you, fight for you, educate you, do the best they possibly can for you. And so a good attorney, like I said, when that scenario comes, you have that discussion, you understand your leverage, set the framework, set the issues here, set what should you be evaluating, what should you be looking at as the landowner. Then you have an idea where you should be going and what you should be thinking about. Not just some general, wandering around in your mind, what should I do, what should I do? No, okay. Here's the parameters that we have. Yes, maybe the company can put it there. They do have these rights, but if your lease terminates, then the company would have to remove it. Then we say, okay, or they wouldn't be able to use it at least. So then we say, okay, well, in that scenario, what is my risk tolerance? Or here's what's being offered. What do I think is a good counteroffer? What are the issues? What can I negotiate? So you need to set the framework of those issues. And a good attorney, a knowledgeable attorney, is going to do that for you. And like I said, early on, if there's nothing to negotiate, your attorney's going to say that. And if you can say no, your attorney should say that. And then you can stop if you like. And of course, you're not going to be spending a whole bunch of money because you're not going to do it. Or You don't have much ability or any ability to negotiate, to make this better, to change the language, to get more money. Well, then, if you have to sign or you feel that it's best for you to sign, then you sign. And it's not a lot of time or a lot of money. So please think about that. Whether it's me or anybody, don't be afraid. Do not be afraid to call an attorney and find out, hey, what's going on here, and getting some ideas. And is that person right for you to assist you? But don't just listen to the company landman, because they're there as a representative for the company. They are there representative for the company. I am Attorney Doug Clark. You're listening to All Things Marcellus. I represent landowners and only landowners. Now, back circling around again here. What got me kind of fired up today, thinking back to this email, well, again, I'm going to go again, kind of just say this is just hypothetically speaking. So, landmen love to try to befriend the landowner. They want to be your friend. They want to be nice guys. They're all about landowners. They're all different. I had a guy here last week. We were doing something with the client. We were looking at some maps. My client had a top lease offer. He has a lease now, and another company wants to come in and offer him another lease and when you have a lease and they want to put another one in place, so when your first one terminates, the second one kicks in, that's generally called a top lease. Again, can be very complicated. You have to be careful with the top lease, but it can be right for you. So in this case, in order for my client to decide, do I even want to continue? Is this worth pursuing? We wanted to see some maps of activity of what this company held as far as leaseholds around my client's property, as well as in the vicinity in the region, but then also what other companies hold leases in this area. Because right now, this particular gentleman was leased still with one company, and that lease doesn't expire till about another year or so, and a new company is coming in. So we say, okay, well, again, look, this is the way I'm thinking early on also. Hey, we don't want to spend time and money. I don't want my client to spend money on me. He doesn't want to spend money on me for some sort of offer that doesn't make sense, that maybe he doesn't get paid on. So let's look at this right away and say, is this something that's even worth pursuing? So as part of that process, we got through what this money would be that he would get if he signed, and that made it interesting enough to continue. Well, then the next step was, well, let's understand what's going on in this area and why this gentleman should enter into this top lease. So, give you a little bit of top lease background. But my story about the landman, very funny, comes and sits down, and I don't know what it is. It seems like a lot of these guys, everyone has a story. And look, this is nothing personal. I'm not saying I have to deal with a lot of landmen who I really enjoy dealing with. I think a lot of guys are very honest and straightforward, but it does kind of make me laugh then when I deal with a new person that I haven't dealt with before. And I represent a lot of people in the western part of the state too, so it's not uncommon that there'll be somebody there that I haven't maybe dealt with before. So when you deal with somebody, it's almost like they have a book that they read from, this pamphlet that they've been trained about how they're all pro landowner. And this is something, and I used to hear this all the time, and I still hear it on occasion. I just heard it this week. A gentleman says, well, I used to do leases, or I used to do pipeline work, whatever we want to say there, for this company. And he names a company. But they were no good. They didn't treat the landowner very well. I didn't like working for them. They weren't a great company. And then from there, I also worked for this other company, securing a second company, securing leases, pipeline right-of-way agreements, whatever the case may be. They were better than the first company, but still, they weren't really giving the landowner a good price. It just really wasn't any good. Then there was a third company. They were a lot better. They were much better than the first two, much better to deal with. They were a pretty good company. But then I started to work for this new company who I'm sitting in your office with, or I'm sitting today here in your office on behalf of this new company. And guess what? This company is the best company this gentleman has ever worked for. Now, it's interesting. This gentleman was and saying, I know, well over his 50s, and actually I'll say he was into his 60s. So he's been working in the industry for all of these years, and this company is the best company. Well, I never ever have had a landman come to me or talk to me on the phone or in person and say, you know what, this company, not so great. I've worked with a lot of other companies. This company, they're the worst. Or, you know what, they're not the worst, but boy, they're down towards the bottom. They really take advantage of the landowners. They have a really one-sided agreement. It's just not a great company for the landowner. I've never heard that said. Shockingly, I've never heard a landman say that. But I can tell you that I've heard many, many times how this company that they are working for now is the best that they've ever worked for. I hear that quite often. Then another thing that was interesting was he says, well, there was this one company, they wanted me, I was supposed to work for, they wanted me, and they showed me their lease, and I looked at that lease and I said, I'm not doing this. There's no way in the world I'm going out and presenting the landowners with this document. Which again, I thought was very funny because, a lease is a lease. What really matters is what's in the addendum terms, that we can really add and change and solidify that lease. So I thought that was interesting. But again, the whole purpose of these statements by this landman to me and my client was how great this landman was, this company was, how he is so pro landowner. He is so pro landowner. He's all about the landowner. He's different. All of those things. And it's funny too, before the meeting, I met with my client and I kind of told him some things. Yeah, this will be interesting. I haven't really dealt with this guy. Let's watch and see if he says a few of these things. And so my client, of course, and I are kind of like looking at each other and, this silent smile saying, see what I mean? This is how these gentlemen operate. But it's their job. That's what they do. So we need to know that, and we need to react to that. Now, let me circle around. First, I am Attorney Doug Clark. You're listening to All Things Marcellus here every Sunday from 8 to 9 a.m. So, okay, one of the things that I noticed in this conversation with this landman at the office was, you said you work for this company. It was really bad, and they took advantage of the landowner. Then you work for this other company who was a little better, but they also took advantage of the landowner. And then even the last one, the third company, they were a lot better, but obviously they weren't perfect, because this new company now, we'll say the fourth company, is the best company that you've ever worked for. So, and that they're the most fair with the landowners, and they give the landowner the best deal and the best agreements, which would mean then that the third company didn't do that. Well, I didn't want to call the gentleman out, but it was begging a question to me. Well, if you're so pro landowner and you care so much about the landowner, then how did you work for company 1, 2, and then even 3? How was that? How was that to go out and trying to get people to sign, getting people, I'm sure, to sign agreements that were bad agreements? You just said they weren't agreements. They weren't good agreements. So you, as a guy who was all pro landowner, when you had a job, understanding you have a job, I very, very much respect that. You have a job, you go out there and you do your job. And your job is what? To work for the company, to get the landowner to sign agreements that are the most company friendly possible, the ones that they give you. And your job is to convince the landowner to sign these agreements. That's your job. You come back day after day after day and you do not have signed agreements, you're only going to come back so many days, because you're not going to have a place to come back to, because you're not going to be welcome there. So you need to get these agreements signed. You need to get them signed. So you're so pro landowner. Well, then why'd you work for those other companies that were taking advantage of landowners? And you were signing what you knew to be bad agreements for landowners, but you're a pro landowner guy. All right, I got sidetracked. I'm going to finish my whole landman story. I think it really got it kind of fired up this week about what some land guys do. And I've never had this particular thing happen. What I'm going to tell you before in a minute here after this break, but I've never actually had this happen. And I'm telling you, it sent me. It really, really sent me. All right, you're listening to All Things Marcellus with me, Attorney Doug Clark of the Clark Law Firm. You can call me anytime, 570-307-0702. Check out pagasleaseattorney.com, pipelineattorney.com. We'll have today's show up on pagasleaseattorney.com tomorrow morning, Monday morning. I'm here every Sunday from 8 to 9 a.m., and I'll be right back after this break. Welcome back to All Things Marcellus with me, Attorney Doug Clark of the Clark Law Firm. I am here every Sunday from 8 to 9 a.m. on these stations, and I've been doing the show since August of 2010. So we are closing in on the 5-year anniversary of All Things Marcellus, the show for you, the landowner. I represent landowners, only landowners, all oil and gas related issues, royalty issues, more and more estate planning, doing much more of that, and of course a lot of pipeline work, the work with the interstate pipelines, all the different types of pipelines. Again, I'll just say please, if you have a pipeline agreement offer, see me or see somebody. I don't want to make it a big commercial for me, I really don't, but whether it's me or somebody else, make sure you're getting assistance by somebody who knows what they are doing. Just finished signing a pipeline right-of-way agreement. Look, every case is different. Over $1 million. They're out there. Okay, they're out there. I've signed agreements for hundreds and hundreds of dollars a foot, thousands and thousands of dollars per acre. But you have to understand and evaluate your leverage. So it's so important. Many people are just leaving tens and tens of thousands of dollars on the table, but I want to make sure I stress that's not always the case, but it is much more often the case than what people may think. So I'm not a person. I hate when I see people advertising or people pushing, oh, well, you can do this, you can do all these incredible things, and then you go to the store or you talk to the person, oh, well, that's not in your case. Well, here's the thing with this. It does happen, and it happens much more frequently than what you think. So what happens is when I have a client and we look and we evaluate and we say, well, you know what? This isn't one of these cases where we have a lot of leverage that we're going to be able to do some really special things on. So then what do? Well, we do the best we can. We do it as efficiently as we can. We get you the best agreement, and then you make your decision on how you want to handle that. Okay, but then sometimes, I just kind of start smiling when I read the paperwork, because I look at the situation and I say, wow, this is an opportunity. This is a great opportunity for you, the landowner, and that's really exciting to me, because I want the landowner to do the best that they can possibly do. I'm not going to be sympathetic to the company because of the gas prices being down. Okay, we want to make sure we're getting you, the landowner, the best possible agreement, both financially and then also the language. We want to protect your property. We want to limit those operations, because so many times that can come back to be a great benefit for you as the landowner. I am Attorney Doug Clark. You're listening to All Things Marcellus, and I want to get back to what kind of started me on this landman rant. So the landman, they would like to go out, and they'll go out, always watch to come out to see you on a Saturday, maybe a late Friday afternoon, especially if they want you to sign something, because they know that you're probably not going to be able to get a hold of your lawyer if you have one. On a Friday afternoon. Well, I shouldn't say that. I don't want to say that. But certainly maybe on a Sunday or a Saturday, you're not able to get a hold of them. So, oh, hey, here you go. During the week, you might be more inclined to say, yeah, you know what? Just let me leave this here. Let me call my attorney. But late Friday, Saturday, maybe not so much. So what does the landman do? He knows these things. She knows these things. So they're going to operate a certain way. Here's another rule of thumb. Beware of any landman bearing gifts. beware of the landman bearing gifts. Please. Maybe you are special to that person, but please just always remember, maybe you're just another landowner with a parcel that they need a signature on. Again, not a specific situation, but please be aware of that. Please be aware of that. So I have a client, hypothetically. We have a hypothetical client here. We have a hypothetical landman. So I have a client, hypothetically, who we're working on a particular project for. And I've been doing, there's a series of, a bunch of clients with the pipelines that have had some major activity in one of these eminent domain situations. So it's really taken some time over these past couple weeks. And another really, really major client that I have a major project on, which has taken some time. So my next job with this one hypothetical client was going to be to draft and create an addendum that we would like to have added to this particular agreement, which, I thought was, I know how long it's going to take me, but it's just a matter of sitting down and having the time to be able to do it. And then all these other things come up, and, sometimes that happens. You're very fortunate. I am to be busy, so I like that. But, we get all the work done and work on weekends and whatever it takes. So in this particular case, and there was no, kind of big hurry on anything because there's no timelines. It has a long option. So it's kind of, and I don't want to get too into strategies here, but for other reasons too, not so much in a hurry to respond to this. The company is always in a hurry. Company's always in a hurry. Think about that. Why are they always in a hurry? Do we, on the landowner side, need to be in a hurry? Well, sometimes you do. Generally, that is rarely, but sometimes, in a lot of cases, in my opinion, most cases, the first thing, in almost every, actually, I can always even say every case, the first thing you should do as a landowner is take a step back. Take a step back, understand what's going on, understand your options, talk to somebody who knows what they're doing. And many times when I have my meeting with my client and we start, and I'm representing them, we agree after we explain and we discuss all these issues. You know what? Let's take a step back here and let's not just go rushing and jumping into something. The company wants you to rush and jump in. They want you to rush and jump in, but in many cases, and say this hypothetical one that I'm talking about, they want you to run and jump in and sign what's called an option agreement, which gives the company a couple years to even decide whether they're even going to use this agreement. So think about that. They're putting pressure on you for timing. We need to get this done. We need to get this done. We want to get royalties. We want to get, and that's their big, that's their big card. That's their ace of spades. We want to get royalties. We want to get royalties. We want to get you royalties here. Sign here. Sign here. Sign here. Then you look at it and it says that they have 2 years before they even have to decide whether they want to use this agreement. Then they may have an unlimited time before they actually even start, we'll say, putting a pipeline in, putting the roadway in. Or maybe they have another 2 years to do that. Or maybe they have a 2-year option and then they can even buy more time, buy another option. However, they want you to sign this document yesterday, and here they are with the pen in their hand and the documentation in front of you saying how they want to get you royalties and, hey, we need to hurry up and do this. But when you read it, it says that they have 2 years, maybe even 3, sometimes even 5, to decide even if they want to do it. So it doesn't quite add up. I am Attorney Doug Clark. You're listening to All Things Marcellus here every Sunday from 8 to 9 a.m. So, okay. So landman who works for the company wants you to sign as soon as possible. However, you notice, because you just read the document while he's there, that they don't even have to decide whether they actually want to use this agreement and generally make you a more substantial payment for 2 more years from today. So my client, we talk about this. You know what? We'll just do this as like a hypothetical situation. The whole thing's hypothetical here. So we'll run through this hypothetical case. So a client comes to me and says, hey, I got this offer. I'm somewhat interested in it. Here's what they're offering. And here's what's going on. So we say we have our internal meeting. We formulate our strategy. We talk about all the different things in play here, what we know about the area, what we know about the other agreements, what's going on. And we get a nice solid strategy. And we say, you know what? Okay, so you're okay with this. You have no objection to this activity occurring. So, okay, that's good. So that means we can go ahead and move forward. But let's talk about the compensation. So we have an option agreement. So typically they'll give you a certain amount of money up front and then a bigger payment if they what's called exercise the option, or what I've been talking about, deciding to use the agreement. So we look at this in my hypothetical. Let's say they want to only give the landowner $2,000 up front, and we'll say $40,000 if they use the agreement. Now I'm making these numbers up. So remember, option agreements, that $2,000 up front, if they don't ever use this agreement, that's all the money you get. So it makes sense, hey, why don't we try to push that money up for some to make sure that you're going to walk out of this with some money if they don't use it, because you are going to have attorney fees. So we want to more than cover that, and we want to set you up for a bigger payday down the line. So let's think about this. What do we want to do? So we formulate our plan. We say, okay, let's ask to increase the option, let's say hypothetically $10,000. And instead of $40,000 as a later payment, again, I'm just making this up here. Let's say we ask for $70,000 because we've determined that we have some pretty good leverage here, and other factors as far as how important is this money, what does this opportunity mean for this person, all these different things. So we decide, okay, let's counter at 10 and 70. Company comes back and they counter and say, okay, yeah, we'll go to $8,000 and say $55,000. So you say, well, okay, that's pretty interesting to me. So what do? They tell that to me, and I look and I say, well, geez, based on everything I know and believe and look at in my experience, I think there's some more here. So let me talk to my client. Let me explain why, and that individual can decide, do they want to push more? Do they like these numbers? Do they want to move forward? What are their thoughts? So we go to have that conversation. Now, what's interesting is the landman knows that I have experience, knows that I understand how to evaluate these things based upon all the work that I do, and also knows that this landowner deals with this situation in a vacuum. They're only one of these. It's not something that they've done before. This is the only time they've ever dealt with this. So what do they want to do? They want to try to take the lawyer who knows what they're doing and the experienced person out of the picture and go to the client landowner. So as this information comes in, the landman goes running off to the landowner and says, oh, hey, well, we gave you all this. We gave you this thing. This was a great deal. Never saw anyone get this much money. Oh, this is so great. This is so great. Can't believe they're paying this much. And tries to persuade the landowner then about how great of a deal it is, and tries to break that connection between the landowner and the lawyer who's actually representing the landowner, who is there. When I have a client, I am there to do nothing but to represent that client to the best of my ability, to explain what their options are, to give them what guidance I can, but to allow them to make the decision that is right for them. The landman, he wants your signature. So he goes out there, well, this is such a great deal, it's such a great deal, and tries to break that relationship. And sadly, and generally not with my clients, but sadly, actually, pretty much never with my clients, because we talk about these things. Sometimes that can occur, and so to me, one of the worst things that can happen is, and if this happens to you, you need to get a new lawyer where you have a better relationship, or you feel you have a closer relationship with the landman than your lawyer. There's a major problem there. there's a major problem. One, the landman's probably doing, you're letting them in too close. But the other part is, it's time for a new lawyer. If this is occurring, this shouldn't be occurring. It's time to get a new lawyer. But you have to be careful. Your lawyer should be there for you. They have to be there for you. That's their job. But they should want to be there for you. That's your person. That's your advocate. That's the guy or girl on your side. So you want to make sure, again, that you're comfortable with that person. All right, I'm up against this break. We'll finish this thing off in the last segment, and I will get to the bottom of it. But hopefully, this is insight that people see. It's so important. You have to understand these things because people sign bad agreements every single day. We need to stop that. We need to protect the landowner and stop that and stop letting the landowner be taken advantage of. I am Attorney Doug Clark. You're listening to All Things Marcellus. Be right back after this break. Welcome back to All Things Marcellus with me, Attorney Doug Clark of the Clark Law Firm. I am here every Sunday from 8 to 9 a.m. If you ever need legal representation, you can contact me, 570-307-0702. That's 570-307-0702. I represent clients all the time. Gas leases, pipeline agreements. Done pipeline agreements now, I think I can safely say, with over 50 different companies across Pennsylvania. More and more estate planning work for my clients. Royalty and royalty deduction issues, unitization issues, all natural gas related representation for the landowner and only the landowner. You can contact me again, Doug Clark at the Clark Law Firm, 570-307-0702. Tune in every Sunday to this show, All Things Marcellus, from 8 to 9 a.m. on these stations, and go to pagasleaseattorney.com. You miss any of today's show, any of the other shows, been doing it since 2010. Go to pagasleaseattorney.com. We'll have today's show up and available on the website tomorrow morning on Monday. And also check out pipelineattorney.com. A lot of great information there. And I promise I am working on getting that site renovated and revamped as well, and hope to have some news coming in the next couple weeks. Okay. Talking about the landman and some of the tactics and tricks that they do. All right, I want to continue on with my story and say, so I gave that example, and I'm going to reset very, very quickly, where landowner was offered, I think we said $2,000 and to sign an option agreement, and then another $40,000 if the company exercised or decided to use that agreement. So we got that. We had our discussion. We said, hey, let's counter. We've evaluated the leverage and think we have something here. So we countered at, I think I said $10,070. $10,000 up front for signing, and $70,000 if the landowner or if the company actually exercised or used this agreement. Well, they came back, and in my example, the company said $8,000 as an option payment, which is a really nice jump. And then they also said, I think we said $50,000. If we didn't, we'll stick with $50,000. So instantly, those numbers went up quite a bit. That's good. Now maybe they could go up more. But they went up quite a bit, so we're on the right track here. So we see that those numbers came up quite a bit, but let's say there's something that I know, or I've looked at this and I think, you know what? I think there's probably some more money here. I think we can probably do some things here. I need to talk to my client, explain why, and see if the client agrees with my reasoning and decides whether they want to push it or are they happy with this. So we need to get the client scheduled. We send everything out. Say, hey, let's schedule an appointment. Let's talk about this. Let's get on the phone. Let's have a telephone conference. Go over this and let me explain what I'm thinking. Well, in the meantime, what does the landman do? Goes darting out to the landowner. Hey, sent you this, or sent your lawyer this. Here's this deal. Oh, it's such a great deal. This is so great. We never pay this money. Oh, this is so great. Let's get this thing done. Why is he doing that? Because he wants to get it signed, and he believes that he can convince the landowner, independently from the lawyer, that, hey, this is a good agreement, we need to get this signed. So then on top of this, and this is the thing that just would set me off. Then let's say an email or communication comes in from the gas company landman saying in an email to me, hypothetically, saying, oh, hey, talk to your client and, quote, we would really like to get this thing going and want to know when we can get this done. I'm telling you, that's something that would make me or makes me lose it. We, landman and landowner, we. So you, landman, go running out independently, don't tell me or anything like that, but go running out to see the landman, I'm sure in an evening, and say about how great this is, how, want to try to hurry up and get this thing done. Still has like a 2-year option to it, a 2-year option. But really what they don't want in this part of the process, in my opinion, are these numbers to go up. So they want to run out and ask the landman or start convincing them, and then get the landman to say, or the landowner, excuse me, to say, oh yeah, that's a good price. Oh yeah, no, that seems reasonable to me. And then they, report that back. They have it all there. And so then if I talk to the landman and we want to, or the landowner, I said landman, if I talk to the landowner, we want to counter for a higher number. Well, they know that they already talked to the landowner and he or she was agreeable to the current offer. So they want to go run out there and say, oh, hey, here it is. This looks good. Are you good? Let's get this thing done. And the landowner may be intimidated, maybe does like, whatever that case may be, but it's independent contact and saying, yeah, we want to get this done. And then from there, the landman then communicates with me as if he's representing my client, the landowner, saying, we would like to get this, we being him and the landowner. No. That's not the combination here. You do not represent the landowner. You represent the company. He obviously doesn't listen to my radio show, or he would know that. He represents the company, not my client, none of these landowners. You, landman, do not represent the landowner. You do not communicate with the attorney on behalf of the landowner, because if you do, then again, there's a problem here. Now, in this case, I have very good relationships with my clients. We talk about these issues. I explain to my clients very early, hey, look, be careful of independent contact. Here's what these guys try to do. They want to get out there and get you to agree to something. So they want to stop you and I from communicating or get to you before we communicate, where I can give you some additional insight. And then they want to keep throwing that back at you that, oh, well, you agreed to this. Just this week, here's what happens. Every time you as a landowner have communication with that company landman, there's like a report, and not like this big long report, but there's a series of notes and notations, paragraph or two or maybe a few, that go down in this system. So anybody then, whoever looks at your file as the landowner, sees what contact there's been and what was discussed and what you said. So if there's a bunch of things in there about how you were agreeable to, you thought this $8,000, in my example, $8,000 up front and $50 was a great deal, then they may never move from that, and you got yourself stuck there, when the reality is that maybe we could have got you, a much higher number here based on the leverage. But you got to be careful, because sometimes you can talk yourself into being in a specific spot as far as compensation goes, and it's really difficult to move from there. So what happens, like I said, they do these like paragraphs, and it goes into their system that anybody can look at and see what your conversations were. And every once in a while, I just had one this week where a company guy will send me the history, which are all the internal notes of the company, saying here's all the different contacts, here's where things stand, here's summaries of all the different contact. So it occurs, I assure you. This isn't something we're making up. This is occurring. So watch out for this independent contact. Watch out for this independent contact, and know that that landman is never, as you as a landowner, it is never, I promise you, please know this, it is never we, being you and the landman. You're never together. You are never, ever together. He works for the company. You're protecting your land, your family, your wealth, your well-being, your future generations. That's what you're doing. Be careful of independent contact because it's all designed to befriend you, get the best possible deal for the company, keep the compensation low, get you to sign and move on. They're not going to keep coming, bringing you gifts, bringing you soup, donuts, bread, whatever. They're not going to keep coming after you sign. They won't keep coming. I am Attorney Doug Clark. You're listening to All Things Marcellus here every Sunday from 8 to 9 a.m. Have a great week, everyone.